Welcome back to More Than the Beard, the podcast where one bearded guy talks to another bearded guy. Today we have Chris. Great episode. Really excited for us to get into it. Let's go. All right, Chris. Well, I really appreciate you being on here today. Go ahead and just, my friend, the floor is yours. Kind of tell me your story.
Okay. Well, I'm 44. I live in sort of South Central Illinois.
Okay.
About an hour outside of St. Louis.
Okay.
I'm married. I have 5 kids. The oldest is 19, and the youngest is 1.
Wow, that's
a big window.
That's a range.
Yeah. It's a hers, mine, and ours kind of situation. You know,
Okay.
I had one before, she had one before. We have 3 together. But yeah, I'm a contractor. I work for myself, so
Nice.
and I work solo most of the time. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and on the weekends and the night times, it's all family. Obviously, there's a lot going on when you got that many kids. There's sports games and TV shows to watch and Legos to build and kids to put to bed and books to read and all that kind of fun stuff. So
that's awesome. What
about it, man. Yeah.
How so you got 5 kids. How is does everyone kind of get along at this point, or most of the time? I know 19 and 1 obviously is a big gap there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the 19-year-old he's out, he's living on his own, going to college and stuff. So he's not around too much. We have a 16-year-old who's here all the time, and he's the one that gets kind of saddled with helping out around the house a lot, So he loves his little brothers and his little sister. I'm sure they get on his nerves, plenty. And they're very personalities run pretty strong in most of these kids. So there's a lot of button heads and some of that stuff, but I think they all love each other, and they certainly miss each other when they're not all together. If we take one somewhere to do something, he'll be like, I kind of miss Maddox or whatever, and that's mostly between Harry and Maddox. So they're the 2 brothers. They share the room. They spend the most time together playing.
Yeah, there you go. That's the bond there. Absolutely. I couldn't.
The youngest is the girl.
Okay. So the question is, does she have you wrapped around her finger at this point?
Oh yeah. She came out that way, man. I was immediately, because a little short background. My wife and I. So I had a boy. She had a boy. Together we had 2 boys.
Oh wow.
We got a dog. He was a boy. So it was all man in this house, and my wife, and she was like, she just wanted the girl so bad, And so on the last baby, we knew it was gonna be the last one, or at least as far as we know, it was gonna be the last one. And we didn't find out ahead of time. So we waited until she was born, to find out. And she came out and it was a girl, and I was yelling. I'm like, oh my God, I'm screaming in the room. And she's going, she doesn't believe me, obviously, because all we have are boys. So she thought I was joking, and I was like, no, it's a girl. And so I mean, but immediately she's whatever, there's pink everywhere in this house right now. I mean, you swear there wasn't a boy in this place to look around. Awesome. Everything's pink and white and purple and rainbows and stuff, so yeah.
That's so awesome. That's so legit. That's fun. Yeah. So you talked to me about a contractor, and I know it looks like you have your own contracting business, kind of like a handyman business.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's a little more carpenter than handyman, but
okay.
But cool. I do handyman stuff also. So, but yeah, the bulk of what I do is building decks and doing mostly bathroom and kitchen remodels, that kind of thing. But it's whatever needs done. I can do literally almost everything that there is to be done. I can do it on a certain level. I'm not a licensed electrician. I'm not a licensed plumber, but I can plumb and I can run electric, but I tend to avoid the bigger jobs on that stuff. My passion, if anything, is building decks. I love building decks. So that's what I try to do the most of if I can. But you got to go where the work is. So
Yeah, that's right. What do you love about like building decks specifically?
uh, I I think it's the I think it's a bit of it is the scale,
Okay.
because they're big, they're bigger usually. Uh, and it's such a bold change on whatever you're doing, because when you look at a deck, it's new, it looks new, whether you left the old frame under there or not, it looks brand new. And so it really spruces up that part of your house. Everything's nice and shiny, and all the edges are sharp and clean, and nothing's rotted out, nothing's gotten weathered, or you know what I mean. When you're first
Yeah.
done, if it's composite or if it's wood or whatever, it looks so crisp and clean when it's first finished. I that's my favorite part, is when it's done. I like to stand back, and just kind of look at it and be like, yeah, that's awesome, I did that. And I think because I work alone, sometimes it's more of a sense of accomplishment, I think, because I did it start to finish. I did every inch of that deck is from me, from my skills that and I didn't do this until later in life. I worked in restaurants for a long time. I worked in retail for a long time. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I really started to do this kind of work. And it led me into what I'm doing now. I started out doing some more sort of home repair type stuff. And then I built a deck, and I loved, and then I built another one, and people saw it and they went, hey, build mine, and all this kind of thing. So it's built into a pretty solid base of customers and business, and it's really, it fulfills my need to work with my hands, to create, I guess.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So a couple questions here, because I'm an avid HGTV guy. Like I love that whole thing, like remodel.
Yeah.
So like, what is like one of the biggest misconceptions? Because I know there has to be a ton, because as I read more about it, it's like, oh, this really isn't this, or like they're there for like 30 seconds. Like, so what do you think is like one of the biggest like misconceptions about some of that stuff?
Well, I would say in terms of contracting in general, there's there's a thought process that if someone calls me and says, hey, I want to, I don't know, let's say I want to rebuild this bathroom, right? Okay, you're gonna take out what's in there, you're gonna put a new, that's it, and then it's gonna be done, it's gonna look beautiful. And that's true for the most part, but a lot of people don't understand or don't see ahead of time. And what you almost honestly can't see ahead of time is what's going on behind all that stuff.
Okay.
Has that drain under the tub been leaking for 20 years? Has if I pull this out, is this wall going to collapse? Are the 2x4s rotted? Is something going on in there? Or has there been animals in there? Has there been this? And not that that's a problem all the time, because it's not. Right. But anytime you do any kind of repairs, there's that caveat that you have to include at the beginning when you say, look, this is what I'm doing, this is what I plan to do, this is how it should work. But when I get into this thing, we don't really know what's going to happen until we pull it apart and see, what's going on in there. What if it wasn't done right from the start? I mean, I've been on jobs where things have been leaking since the day they built that house, and nobody knows until you pull it apart, and then everything just turns into dust in the wall, And so that's the part that people, I know when you do, and you know what the truth is, on those HGTV shows, they do show some of that stuff, where they'll go into a house and they'll be like, we're going to do, this is all we're going to do, and it's going to be $200,000 or whatever. And then they start pulling stuff apart, and they're like, well, this is this and this is that. We got to fix this first before we can do that. And that's going to take out of this budget and that budget, all that kind of thing. So they do try to show some of that stuff, but I know it's still, it's hard to think about what's going on when you, especially as a homeowner, I think anyway, you get more excited about what the final product's going to be. You're not thinking about what's going on behind the scenes there. what's going to happen when we start doing this? Is everything going to go real smooth? Hopefully, yes, please. But you never know until you do it. But to my end, one of the things that I do really enjoy is the hunt if something's wrong. Like I like one of the things when I first got into this sort of line of work, one of my jobs was storm damage repair. And we had to find leaks.
Okay.
If roof is leaking, there's a hailstorm, whatever, my roof is leaking. I need you to figure out what's leaking. And then you got to hunt it down. It could be one of these three things. It could be this, could be that, whatever. We got to figure out what's doing it, fix it, and that kind of thing. And I was like, that was a thing where I was pretty good at it. And I think it's just because of the way my brain works. It's easy for me to kind of follow the trails, and so getting into that sort of thing, that's something that I like to be able to I like to solve puzzles, and I like to do that stuff on the side too, kind of brain type puzzles and strategy games and that sort of thing. Like I like to use that part of my brain to kind of figure out what's going on, or on the flip side of that, how to fix what's going on. Maybe you don't have everything. Maybe it's not something simple like slap a piece of, seal over this or whatever, and it's done. It's not always that easy. So I like to be able to figure out the best way to fix it to keep it from happening again. Also, you don't want to slap and dash, as they say.
Yeah, just fix it, and then it's going to be someone else's problem in 20 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I hate the callback. I don't ever want the callback.
No, never. So what's what's your biggest tip for someone that wants a deck on their house?
I would say go look at decks, look at different styles of decks, look what's out there, look at a full deck. Don't open a book and look at some sample pictures that are in a magazine, because you cannot tell what you can't tell the color, you can't tell the texture, you can't tell the size, the quality, you can't tell any of that stuff from a picture. You have to feel. You got to touch it with your hands. You got to lay out, one little, they give you those little sample squares of decking material, like, here, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, well, that's what it's going to look like in this much of your deck. What about the rest of it? And you can't see that laid out in those big, if your deck's 15 by 15 or whatever, that little 4-inch square isn't going to tell you anything about what that color is really going to look like. You got to look at it up against your siding. Is it going to look? Is it going to match? Is it going to clash? Is it going to, so I would say get out there, drive around. I know it's hard to see decks sometimes because they're in backyards, not necessarily front yards, so have to look from the side maybe or whatever, but you can also,
y'all got a deck back there
for me,
take a look at?
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Let me just walk around your house real quick, stranger. But if you kind of drive around, the bigger neighborhoods are better for it. Cul-de-sacs are real good because you can drive around the cul-de-sac and kind of see the sides, you can see behind some other houses and see what they got going on sometimes. But sometimes bigger companies, like the bigger lumber companies, will have sort of display decks out in their showroom and stuff, and that's a good place to go and kind of at least see it in a bigger section of it. And with the railing, sometimes different types of railings next to it, so you can kind of see what looks good or what doesn't look good, or what you like, what you don't like. But I would say that's the key, is to get out there and kind of look and touch and feel what the product is before you just go, I want this, I want this, I want this. And I would never just come to somebody and go, this is what you want, this is what I'm giving you, done deal. We got to look at this thing. We got to get I'll find some big pieces. I always keep bigger pieces of the when I'm, cut off pieces and stuff like that. I'll keep bigger pieces of those deck boards and stuff, just so I can show people a better size of sample, so we can put a couple next to each other, laying up next to your house, and actually get a better idea anyway of a better starting point. So
I'm picturing a Crocodile Dundee kind of moment where they pull out their fort, the little one be like, oh, this is the thing. And you're like, well, that's okay. This is the real deck piece. And you come out with the one, be like, think that's a knife? This is a knife. That's awesome. So okay, so you work with your hands all
not a
day,
board.
essentially. Yeah, exactly. So you work with your hands all day and then go home to the family. And I know you mentioned like reading a little bit earlier. What kind of what books are you reading? Like, what are you like? I know you sounds like you like to work your mind. So like, what do you read?
Well, I honestly, I don't, I mean, I read books, we read a lot of, let's see, what's popular right now is, there's a set of books called Nibbles, the Book Monster. So we've been reading a lot of those. We read, my kids, they get hooked, on a book and they want to read it every night for weeks on end. So we've been reading, it just depends. It's all different, but I'm a Dr. Seuss fan, so we got a lot of Dr. Seuss books around the house that I like to read. I've got a bunch of these, for Father's Day. This past Father's Day, I got a bunch of the books where they put the kids' names in them, and it's like a story about you and the kid. You know what I mean? Me and the kids, superhero dad and Dad and Marley, or whatever, that kind of stuff. So we read those things pretty often. My 7-year-old is into more like chapter books, so he's been reading a lot of Magic Tree House, and which are older books, but he's a big fan of that kind of stuff.
Classic.
So we read a lot of that. When I used to read a lot of books myself before I had children, but I only ever read like novels and like fiction and stuff. I like to read. Plus that predated smartphones and podcasts and that kind of. I'm a podcast guy now because I work alone. I'm podcast all day long, and my list of podcasts there's 100 different podcasts that are on my list that I subscribe to, and I just listen, because it's 8 to 10 hours a day. Just I just roll through them, and I have a set that I listen to every day. Like every new episode, I'm on this one, and you know what I mean. As soon as they come out, I'm on it, but then I fill in with the other ones. The ones that are more like weekly or seasonal, where they might do 8 episodes or whatever every 6 months or something like that. But
what are some of your like top go-to podcasts right now, or like what are some of your like daily listens, or like your just like general favorite ones, I guess, or however you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, there's one, the one I listen to every day, which is the only daily one that there is really that I listen to, is it's just the morning radio show here on the alternative rock station. It's just 4 dudes. They've been friends forever, and it's just them talking news and doing some fun. It's morning show, but it's not cheesy morning show. You know what I mean? They're normal guys. They're all about my age or so, and so we're similar mindsets and whatnot. And that's just the read in St. Louis, and then. All Fantasy Everything is my other favorite podcast. That's once a week. That's just one where they fantasy draft things from pop culture. They fantasy draft sandwiches. They fantasy draft movies. And then they'll be a little more specific. Movies that won Grammys, movies that didn't win Grammys, movies with Oscar winners that didn't win Oscar, like that. They'll get deeper into those kind of things. The last one they did was or two, I guess it was 2 times ago, they did songs you like by people you don't, which was pretty good. But so that's another favorite of mine. And then there's a few others. Jimmy Pardo, I like Jimmy Pardo a lot, so I listen to his podcast, Never Not Funny. But those are probably the ones that are sort of, they're first up. As soon as those new episodes, All Fantasy Everything, honestly, is my favorite. It's absolutely hilarious.
It sounds amazing
every time. It's so good. The head guy, he's the co-head writer of the Late Late Show with James Corden, which I do not watch. But he's so funny, man. He's just like so quick. How those guys are so quick-witted. When there's an opportunity for a joke, it's something somebody says, like they're on it, and that's what I love. I love that kind of, I'm taking it. They take every opportunity to make the joke. That's what I want to hear. Don't leave them out there. Just beat me over the head with your jokes. That's what I want to hear.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the best kind of one where it's like, this is the general topic, and then we're just going to go and see where it goes from there. Those are all the best. Those are always the best ones. I mean, and then you just plus, although I'm sure it looks kind of interesting if you have a customer walking out looking at you, you're just cracking up, laughing, hammering a nail or something like that.
It happens a lot. I get that question a lot. Like, what are you listening to? Because I used to listen to music a lot more, and it's just slowly. Once I sort of discovered podcasts, it was sort of just the needle kind of moved from mostly music to now it's pretty much all podcasts. Sometimes on the drive home, I'll flip over to Spotify or something and listen to some music. But generally during the day, it's all podcasts. Unless sometimes if I work on a weekend, I'll listen to music, and I don't really have a reason for that because it's not like there's not podcasts to listen to, but I just sometimes that weekend day, because it's usually a short day, I'll work only half a day or something on a Saturday only if I have to. I mean, just to kind of knock out a job or something like that. But yeah, most of the time it's just podcasts, and I love it. There's so many. I mean, I would assume there's millions of them probably.
Oh my gosh! Like it's stupid how many you can find podcasts for any I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, it's anything you want to hear about. There's podcasts for it, man. And I love it, man. It's great. It's so great. It's so cool to just and to hear people, especially like the stand-up comedians and stuff that otherwise you wouldn't. The only thing you'd ever hear from them would be their comedy, which is great, but I like to hear those guys sit down and shoot the breeze about something. Let's talk about whatever. And there's a couple different ones. Some of these guys most of the ones that I listen to with comedians are, they're blue. They work blue, so the podcasts are that way too, and which is still makes it. I love it, but I also listen to some clean podcasts where they don't curse and they don't do that kind of stuff, and those guys are just as funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking, but yeah, there's just so much to consume, and I like a lot of. I'll go through kind of what do you call it, like where I'll get in sort of a true crime groove for a while. I'll just listen
where you like
all these true crime things. Yeah. At Halloween time, I like to listen to ghost stories and stuff. So at Halloween time, I'll listen to all just like spooky horror type stuff. That some of it's the scripted sort of dramas or whatever, or horror stories and made up stuff, and just then like ghost story type stuff. I'll listen to all that kind of stuff at Halloween time. And but yeah, it's just whatever mood I'm in too. Sometimes I kind of go with that, and I'm the same way with music too. Like whatever mood I'm in, that's kind of the genre of music that I'm listening to. If I'm chilling, I like an acoustic, kind of laid back singer songwriter, whatever. Like last night we're sitting out on the deck, I had the fire going, drinking a beer, listening to acoustic music. Everybody went inside. It was just me at the end. I just chill. I sat out there for another probably hour and a half, just hanging out, drinking my beer and chilling. And just sitting there by the fire.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably great weather this time of year out there, like exactly for that. Like
it gets hot. I don't know where you're from, but I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay, originally. I'm Arizona, so it's
okay.
It's
well, yeah, you know all about hot, then I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's humid here.
No humidity though. That's what I'm thankful for.
Humid. I'll never forget the first. I remember distinctly. It's been almost 22 years since I moved here. So 21 years since my first summer day here in Illinois, and I walked out the door, and I couldn't believe the humidity. I was like, what happened? Where it felt like you're walking through soup. It was so gross. It's gross. And it's like that a lot of the time around here. But yeah, we honestly have had, considering the heat waves that have gone on around the country, here in the middle, it's been okay, man. It's really been an okay summer. We've had a few, there's a few weeks where it's been up over 100, heat index, and even honestly, just the temperature alone up over 100, only once or twice probably. But for the most part, the bulk of the summer has been pretty decent. Nice breezes, it's cool. It's been 70 degrees. Today it was like 79 outside. Oh, that's that's perfect.
Perfect weather. Absolutely.
I'll build a deck all day long in 79 degrees. But I'll also build a deck when there was snow on the ground. So it's
good for you, because I went to a place where there was snow in college, and I I like to go visit for like a weekend and just never.
Right,
And
yeah.
I'm a big dude, so like I like being cold, but like I
Yeah.
hate snow. I learned how to drive in a
Yeah.
blizzard. It was terrible, and I'm like, I don't ever want to do this again.
It is. Man, around here, if it snows around here, they shut it down. They don't. Nobody knows how to drive in the snow out here. I growing up in Pennsylvania. It snows all the time. I mean,
Exactly.
we had 100+ inches of snow one winter. Like I think it was my senior year. We didn't have a full week of school for 3 months. I think from Christmas break until God, it was the end of March. I think we had 2 blizzards back to back halfway through March, like within 3 days of each other.
Oh my gosh,
40 something inches of snow. So I mean, I don't mind snow at all, especially out here because it's nothing. It doesn't snow. This is nothing out here.
Yeah,
It snows a foot out here, and I'm like, all right, let's get out and shovel. I shovel my sidewalk, the neighbor's sidewalk, the other neighbor's sidewalk. I'll just get out and shovel some snow because it's not. It's like a little strip, like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get out there and bang it out. And people are out there with their snow blower that they use once every 5 years. And oh, I get the snow blower out.
That's why you have it, though. It's that one gadget thing. You got to make sure you use it when you have it, right?
Yeah, I don't have room in my garage for something like that right now.
Oh my god. Yeah, probably too many tools. I'm guessing probably a lot.
There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of junk, if I'm being honest, out there. But we got, there's the sports stuff that is out there. There's the Nerf guns out there. I couldn't tell you how many baseball gloves are out there. There's probably 10 baseball gloves. Random little cars and bikes and scooters and
the garage is the
tools.
Catch-all. Yeah, the garage is the catch-all. If there's no place to go.
In the garage. There's no car in that garage. We've been here 5 years. I think the car's been in there maybe 6 months. And it was the summertime. It wasn't in the winter when it mattered,
That's amazing. Hey, you know what? If it doesn't fit anywhere in the house, put it in the garage, throw it on the shelf. We'll figure it out later. And then,
That's
and then when you go to move, you're like, oh, hey, I have this still?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Take this out to the garage. It's in the way in here.
All right, guys, I'm going to take a quick pause here to give a shout out to Live Bearded. Live Bearded's primary goal is to always create an extraordinary customer experience by finding ways to put their customers first. They lead the industry by creating policies like a lifetime warranty and a 365-day money-back guarantee to ensure the customer is always satisfied. They put the customer first in everything they do. Listen, they don't want to just be another company that sells stuff online. Anyone can do that. These guys are about connecting with their community, and it is a great community. Guys, I'm telling you, they always are striving to do better. You know it. Listen, the lifetime guarantee is a no questions asked policy. They stand behind every product they sell with a lifetime guarantee. If you're not fully satisfied with the product, let them know and you can exchange it or you get a refund. Listen, these guys are awesome. Be sure to use Redbeard10 to save 10% at checkout. Link is in the show notes. Again, that's going to be Redbeard10. That'll save you 10%. Listen, LiveBeard's awesome. I love them, and that's why I support them. Back to the show. What do you do? So it sounds like you got, 5 kids, obviously. You're working with your hands. So for what do you do to are you a TV guy to relax? It sounds like you listen to podcasts during the day. So what's your thing?
I love TV.
Okay.
I really do. TV and movies. We watch a pretty good amount of movies, on the weekends. Weekends are, we watch movies on the weekend nights. We'll watch a lot of movies. We watch all the, Marvel and Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
Nice.
As you can see from my
I was gonna say the shirt. That's definitely
but we like all that kind of stuff, obviously, and comedies too. But TV, I love watching TV. Like my wife and I will watch TV shows sometimes. Generally speaking, we don't get to do it too much. When before we had the younger kids, we watched a little bit more TV because but now we don't. The kids go to bed at 9 or 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever, and by the time we're done cleaning up and doing all that kind of stuff, I'm tired, and we'll sit down to watch TV and I will fall asleep every single time. But when we do watch it, we like to watch, a lot of those kind of Netflix or Prime original shows, that kind of stuff. We watch a lot of that sort of thing. My wife and her son, my stepson, they like to watch a lot of TV shows and stuff. They have a little more time to do it. Like if I'm taking a shower or whatever, they'll watch one of their shows that they like to watch together. So, which is kind of cool. They get to, they can, because he's older, they can enjoy the same kind of stuff.
Yeah,
together. But yeah, I will. I'm trying to think of what the last thing we watched together was. We started watching Brockmire, which is really funny. It's dirty, but it's funny. But it's really funny. And but that we kind of fell off of that. We've been we got a new TV in here, and so it has we don't have cable or anything.
Who does?
Where we live, it's not, that kind of stuff's not, I mean, you can get cable, but it's expensive because it's not,
it's useless because you watch 3 channels maybe, like.
Exactly, yeah. We have all the streaming things. So but this one has, for whatever reason, the antenna channels come in really good on this new TV. So we get the buzzer channel, which is old game shows. I love old. I grew up watching old game shows when they were not old game shows. They were new game shows. And old. I'll go through like match game. Right now they got the crappy match game on there now, but I love the match game. The ones from the 70s. They were great. And but I'll put on buzzer, and there's it's like super password and these crazy, the old school supermarket sweep is on there.
Oh, the best.
Yeah, right. So we'll watch that tonight. And there's a channel that's This Old House all the time. It's nothing but This Old House all day, every day. So we'll put that on too sometimes. We'll get in a group. We're kind of remodeling stuff here around the house. So we do tend to watch some of that kind of stuff a little more often. Not that I need to watch it necessarily to figure out what I'm doing, but it helps to give you kind of ideas sometimes.
The inspiration of like, oh, that would be fun, or oh, that's really neat, or oh, that's a cool.
Right,
little,
and
like,
that
there.
Modern farmhouse thing is real popular right now, so that's what my wife is into. So we've been doing kind of some of that. We're working on figuring out the cabinet situation in the kitchen, and I just redid all the floors. And we redid the other like the kind of main bathroom. So we're working on all that kind of stuff. We got like outside projects we want to do too, and but we got kids and you got bills, and all this, nothing's cheap anymore. The price of lumber, I don't know, it went through the roof.
High.
It's slowly, I think, working its way back to earth, but I don't know if COVID kicks off again. I don't know. I mean, it could go back up, I guess. I don't know what'll happen, but I hope not, because honestly, I mean, the deck I'm working on right now, that lumber probably was twice what it should have been, or what it would have been even a year ago.
That's insane.
Yeah, but so luckily some of the other stuff didn't affect it as much, like the composite. So it all went up, but nothing like the way lumber did. Lumber doubled. It full on doubled in price, which is outrageous.
You're the person that would like actively see that, where you're like, oh, it's up a little bit. Oh, it's up a little bit. Why is this up so high? This is insane. Right? Where it's like, you hear the stories. Yeah, it kind of goes up, and you're like, no, I see it every day. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, so I don't build houses, like whole houses or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that business, they've been hurting because the price of houses is. I mean, I've heard any kind of monster stories, but some of them generally like anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 more than what you would have paid, and it's only like the worst part of it is the plywood, like just a sheet of plywood, which is 32 square feet, 4 feet by 8 feet, $100 just for that piece of plywood. Now imagine that over the course of your whole house. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's insane that those prices. I can't even fathom, man. It's crazy. And I mean, I put a roof over the deck I'm doing right now. It's got a roof on it, so there's plywood. But it was only 12 sheets, but I mean, that was a sizable portion of the budget. Was just those 12 sheets of plywood.
That's insane.
So
that's so insane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, I mean, not just in general. Let's hope COVID doesn't come in the second round. And I mean, that's for that in general. But so, kind of wrapping up here. One, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
What's the best piece of advice you were, just in general life advice that you were ever given, or like what's good parenting advice? You have a couple, so what's some good parenting advice?
Well, so I take a big chunk of the way I parent from my grandfather. Now, I didn't have a father growing up. They just had my mom for most of it. And so my grandfather, who ironically had 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl, just like me.
That's awesome.
He was a master mechanic, operating engineer guy for a long time. But he told me when he had gotten cancer, pancreatic cancer. He was at like 80, right around 80, and so I had gone back to visit him, and I was in the midst of unbeknownst to me, I was close to a divorce.
Oh.
I didn't know it yet, but I would find out shortly thereafter. But I was home visiting him, and we were talking, and I was trying to tell him in my very manly way, without crying, that I loved him and that I was thankful for him and that kind of thing. And we were kind of talking. This is like the day before I left to come back here to Illinois, and we were talking about him and grandma. My grandmother, his wife, had been sick for a long time too. She had Alzheimer's, and so he was taking care of her and stuff. And he told me a couple things that he said to me that have stuck with me since then. One was he's care was to live in grandma so that I could take care, so that he could take her to the end. He died like 6 months after she passed away. His cancer had come back. He beat pancreatic cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Which anybody that knows anything about pancreatic cancer, it doesn't happen. The survival rate's like 6% or 7%, something like that. He beat it at 80, whatever years old. He beat pancreatic cancer for a minute so that he could take care of his wife. She passed away. The cancer came back. He was like, I'm not fighting it anymore. I'm done. We'll go be with grandma. So, but we were talking that it was right around Christmas time, and he said that to me, and I was thanking him because he helped me. Like my first car, the transmission went bad. He gave me money to get it fixed. I needed some money for college. He gave me some money for college. Like, he was always there to kind of help out. When we didn't have, my mom was single mom, she didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always there to kind of help out with that kind of stuff. And so I was saying, he's like, I got money. He's like, I can't remember exactly how we got to that point, but the thing he said to me was, he said, if a man has $1 million, but he has no family, he's got nothing. And that really stuck to me because I was in the midst of, I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. I was running, I was a manager of a store, of an Aldi store, and I was working a ton. And I was gone all the time. There was an hour commute. I was gone like 90 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that. And my oldest son at the time he was 6 or 7, I guess, at the time. I guess 7. And so I wasn't there to see anything he was doing. I wasn't there to help out with him. I wasn't there to, to just spend time with him. I'd get home, I'd want to sleep. I'd get up, I'd be gone. I'd have to get up at like 3:30 in the morning, be to work by 5, And so he told me that, and I came back and I stepped down as manager to get closer to home to try to work on this. That didn't help, but besides that, I learned that lesson, to you got to work to support your family, but you have to have a balance.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a work-life balance, and without it, everything falls apart. The job suffers, the family suffers, everything suffers. So I feel like I've been pretty good about it. Working for myself has helped because I can now, hey, there's a baseball game, I can get to that baseball game because I don't have to answer to anybody, other than my wife. But like she'll be like, this is what we're doing here. This is what, she's very organized, so everything's on the calendar. It's not that I don't forget things, because I am forgetful. So I do work, and I'm like, oh God, I got to be here. So I got to rush, and get there, and I'll show up in my work clothes or whatever. But I get there most of the time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you still got to work, it happens. But I feel like we together, we do a pretty solid job of we're always at every game. One of us is at every single game. Any special day. Now, she homeschools our 2, and then eventually it'll be the 3 youngest kids she homeschools. But they have like a community thing that they do. They do social things with them. So that kind of stuff, I go to that as much as I can. Doesn't always, if it's during the day, I can't be there. But even if it is, sometimes even when it is during the day, I can bounce off of work and I can go do something with them. Like one day I left work, I picked up my son, I took him to the ninja training course, down in O'Fallon. And so they have all the obstacles to run and jump and swing and all this kind of stuff. So, but I can do that kind of stuff because of what I do for a living. And that helps. Like that gives you the fulfillment to be able to spend that time with your family, the ability to spend that time with your family, which I didn't have when you're working for somebody else. You don't always have that.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody can work for themselves. I get it. But when I have I don't know what you'd call it, but I have this thing when I work for somebody, like when I worked for Aldi, if they asked me to go somewhere, I went. I never questioned it. You need me to work late? I work late. You need me to come in early? I come in early. And I can't, like, I cannot get away from that when I work for a company. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense, but I just can't do it. I had a real problem putting work ahead of my family. So
you have a work ethic at that point, and the problem for some people is like prioritizing the family over work, because
right,
that's which is nothing to be ashamed of. But family
but
suffers.
It cost me that marriage. It cost that marriage, and or at least contributed to it anyway. But so I don't have that anymore. I don't. I realize that work needs to get done, but I can go into work late if I need to. I can come home early. I can take a day off. I can do whatever we need to do. I can do it. And it's been it's a tremendous stress off of you to be able to do that, to know that you can be there for your children whenever they need you to be there, or most of the time for, when something will come up at some point, and that happens in any situation that happens. But I'm confident to know that I can be there for most of it, and I can be. And to me, that's the weird thing was not having a dad. I wanted to be a dad so bad when I was growing up, because I was like, I'm going to be the greatest dad ever. You know what I mean? And I wasn't that. And my first wife would call me out on that, and it hurt. But it was true, because I wasn't being what I wanted to be. And so, in the midst of that divorce, I learned all those lessons. I learned the work-life balance lesson. I was not a Christian, and I am now. I came to Christ during that divorce. And I know they always say sometimes it just takes the worst moment to get you there. Whatever it is that gets you there, that's what gets you, and that's what got me there. And thankfully, because through that, I met my wife, and we have this whole relationship with Christ. We have this relationship with the church. My whole business is built off of the church, because that's where all of my leads come from. I have never advertised. I have never scouted for work. I've never cold called anybody for work. My phone rings every single week. Somebody calls me for a job. I've got work through the end of the year. And I've never had less than 4 months worth of work waiting for me. Never, since I started this business. And it's all because of the church, because I know the people at church. They hire me to do stuff. They recommend me to other people at the church, or friends of theirs that aren't from the church. Everything has come from that. And everything that is good in my life has come from that moment of accepting Christ and turning towards it and leaning into it, and all of that fulfillment, all of those things are based in that. And not that I don't get lax sometimes, because I do. I get tired sometimes, like anybody, but it's a big underlying current in our lives is God and Christ and the church, and those things that help us to maintain the life that we want to live. We working towards being debt free, working towards, just being better, having nicer stuff, but never overextending ourselves, which is what I did. It's like two different lives I've lived. My first marriage, and I was married for 10 years to my first wife. I've been married to my wife now for 8 years. We've been together for almost 11 years. So it's two very similar timelines and two very different stories, of our lives. And but all of that is, I guess that's a long-winded way to say, if I had advice, I'd say, put it into your family, like the family, it's such a big deal, man. I have a lot of plans, like, of family dinners and stuff, things that I remember as a kid. We would always have family breakfast on Sundays at my grandparents' house. The whole family would come over, and that's what I want. I'm building my own thing here. I'm building my replica, so to speak, of my grandparents' life. Like with the 5 kids, their spouses, the grandkids, the great grandkids. Now, I'm there. Like, I'm working on it in Illinois, and I'm building it, and it's just seeing our kids get older. My son, my oldest boy, who's 19, he's has an apartment, has a job, going to college. He has a girlfriend. They've come over and they've had dinner with us. We did a Sunday dinner, just last weekend. So that's the things that we're working towards, is building that sort of real sturdy family life that I grew, even not having a father, I grew up in that life because we were so close. My mom and her 4 brothers were so close. And I have a cousin who's 10 months older than me. We were like brothers growing up. We were together every summer. We spent the whole summer together, every summer, just, going wherever, riding bikes, doing, whatever we were doing it together. and that life that's what I want for my family now. But now, instead of being at the bottom of the pyramid, I'm at the top of the pyramid, and building it out. So,
right.
That's
awesome.
I guess just all to say, just, how important family is, and how important it is to have, and honestly, even non-Christians, you can have that life,
Oh,
but you have to have that family. You have to be centered on your family first, and build around it. And everything you do works towards supporting and building the family, and lifting it up and stuff. And we're very sarcastic people here. We make a lot of jokes. I poke a lot of fun, but I don't think any of my kids would ever question that I love them, or that their mom loves them, or that they love each other.
That's awesome.
And that makes me proud. I tell them every single day that I love them. I kiss them, I hug them, I wrestle them, I put them in headlocks, whatever it takes. I want them to know them. I want them to always know that I love them, and that I'm here, and I will be here forever. Well, as long as I can be here, I guess. But,
right, absolutely.
As long as I'm here on this earth, I will be here for them. So
awesome.
That's to me, that's the most important thing I think that anybody can do, honestly.
Last question for you, just to kind of sum it up. What do you want your legacy to be? Like, if someone meets you as they leave the part, let's say they never meet you again, what do you want your legacy to be on this earth with that person?
Wow. That's a big question. I think, I guess just that I am who they think I am.
Awesome.
And that I am that guy. I give a strong handshake. I make a lot of jokes, but I love a lot of people, and it's weird to say that I like people, because certainly there's people that I don't like.
Oh, absolutely.
But I like to be around people sometimes. I also like my private time too, but because I was an only child growing up, so I certainly enjoy my own personal time. But I do like to meet people and just kind of get to know them a little bit, and have a conversation about something, whether it be something that I know something about, especially if it's something that I don't know anything about, because I like to hear about stuff that I don't know anything about. I like to learn stuff. I like to get into things, and there's a lot of things that I have an interest in that I literally don't know much about. I want to hear about it. I want to be able to ask questions. You know what I mean? I like that kind of stuff. So meeting new people is how you learn that kind of stuff. People who do different jobs, people who go different places, you know, and do different things. I think if I met people, I want them to know that I am a guy who is genuine. I try not to portray myself as anything other than just a regular dude, but I would hope that they would think that about me, and that, hey, that's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any more than that. But that's what I would hope, you know, that I'm a good guy, and you should be a good guy. Everybody should be a good guy. Why can't we all just be good people to each other? You know, we don't have to argue. We can have differences. We don't have to argue about it. You think one thing, I think something else. No big deal. I can ask questions about it. You can ask me questions about it.
We can still shake hands at the end of the day and walk away as friends, acquaintances, whatever.
Yeah.
However the situation may end, you know, we can still shake hands and say thanks for the conversation. That's excellent.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. That's an awesome legacy. Well, Chris, you know, my friend, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. And again, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's good to meet you.
There we have it. Chris, great man who works with his hands and, you know, always laughs. It would, that with that beard, him just laughing and hammering would be an amazing sight to see. I want to thank Chris today for coming on the podcast. It was a pleasure to have him. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate you. And at More Than the Beard podcast, we believe that every beard has a story, and I'm here to tell it. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.